Hi there, smart drivers. Talking to you tonight about speed, and speeders. Why everybody speeds and travels above the posted speed limit. But you're also going to find out that the definition of speeding is not just driving faster than the posted speed limit. It's also other definitions of speeding. And my friend Tim at Drive Smart BC summed it up well, and he said, "Me first." This is one of the reasons that people speed. And it definitely is one of the motivating factors that causes people to drive faster than the posted speed limit. The first thing we want to talk about in terms of kinetic energy, because one of the things that I do not subscribe to is that speed causes crashes. The mismanagement of speed and space, I believe, is what causes crashes. Speed, however, does contribute to the severity of the crash. And the reason that I say that speed doesn't cause crashes is because if that were true, we would have far more crashes that we on highways and freeways and interstates than we do in the cities. But we have way more, 3 times the number of crashes in cities than we do on highways and freeways. And I'll talk about why that is. So kinetic energy, it's the amount of damage that your vehicle is going to sustain when you're involved in a crash at a particular speed. So we're going to use kilometers an hour here. So if you're going 20 kilometers an hour, you have X amount of kinetic energy in your vehicle, whatever it is, 100 newtons or whatever the force is. If you double that, the amount of energy in your vehicle doesn't double, it quadruples. So it's exponential. The amount of energy in your vehicle is exponential. So these new fast vehicles that we have that will go 160 kilometers an hour without blinking an eye, you have a lot of kinetic energy in your vehicle, and you are probably not going to withstand a crash if you get into a crash at 160 kilometers an hour or 100 miles an hour. So at 60 kilometers an hour, you now have 9 times the amount of force. 80 kilometers an hour, it's 4 times faster than 20 kilometers an hour, so now you have 16 times the force, and if you go 100 kilometers an hour, you have 25 times the force. So we also know that the amount of kinetic energy in your vehicle, wearing seatbelts probably is not going to save you over 55 miles an hour, 90 kilometers an hour. If you're going faster than that and you're wearing a seatbelt, it may save you in combination with the airbag, but probably not. Speeding. What are the definitions of speeding? Faster than the posted speed limit, which is what most of us think speeding is. Speeding is also faster than the traffic flow. So we know that most of the traffic flow is kind of 5 to 10 miles an hour than what the posted speed limit is. Driving faster than the traffic flow. Driving faster than me. Somebody passes me, and you ever notice that when you're driving, that people who are driving faster than you are boneheads, and people driving slower than you are dummies? It's one of the things that unites us as a human race. I'm a good driver. And then faster than the conditions of the road will allow for speeding. Because remember, posted speed limit is under ideal conditions. So if it's snowing out and you've got a skiff of snow on the road and you're driving the posted speed limit, you're probably speeding. Okay? And in 2016, and for the most past 2 decades, around a third of all fatalities were caused by speeding drivers. This was the National Highway and Traffic Safety Association in the United States of America. So they are firmly on side with most traffic safety authorities saying that speed causes crashes. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Speeding. In the beginning of motorized traffic, we had from motorized cars, even the old first cars, the rattly old Cadillacs and the Model Ts and those types of things, urban road speeds increased 500% from horse-drawn traffic to motorized traffic. 30 miles an hour doesn't seem like very much, but when you go from 6 miles an hour, basically how fast you can walk or a horse can walk, and you go to 30 miles an hour, you've now increased road speeds 500%. And think about that. In a 30-year period, this is what happened on urban roads. And this is like saying that in 2060, we'll all be driving around on streets at 150 kilometers an hour. That's just an insane concept to think that we would be driving that fast. So policing changed. Everything was going to court in the beginning for speeding tickets. police officers were measuring out a distance. They were timing cars over that distance, and then they would take them to court. It clogged up the court system. The court system couldn't deal with the number of speeding tickets, and the people were being brought in for traffic violations. So eventually what happened is that police powers were increased to issue speeding tickets on the spot. Forever changed the urban and rural landscape in terms of traffic signs. Now that we have traffic signs everywhere, just look when you're driving and you'll see how many traffic signs are along the roadway. Traffic lights, infrastructure, all of this to handle increased speeds within the city. And some would actually argue that the city became even more concrete and signs and regulated than it was before that. And traffic laws, a lot of traffic laws came into police cars and to allow regulation of motor cars and whatnot. However, traffic laws no more prevent crashes than criminal law prevents crime. So know that the next time that you start saying to people that, oh, that's against the law. A case study in Australia, I'll show you the videos here in a bit. In Australia, speed is rigidly enforced with speed cameras. Nobody, when I was driving in Australia, in the state of Victoria, in the state of New South Wales, everybody drove at 100 kilometers an hour because there were speed cameras everywhere, and you would get a ticket in the mail. And when you get a ticket with a speed camera, it is very infuriating. I got one last summer from the state of Saskatchewan, or the province of Saskatchewan rather, and it was incredibly frustrating to get a speeding ticket in the mail when there was no other repercussions. There was no points on my license. The insurance company never knew about it. I just had to pay a fine, which, you know, in the end was not too bad. Nobody points to the country of Australia and says, look at their traffic safety record. They don't speed there. They only do 100 kilometers an hour. They don't have a good traffic safety record. Nobody in the world does that. However, you look at the Autobahn, and obviously there's less speeding, and there's some parts of the Autobahn now that do have posted speed limits on it. And of course the price of fuel, which is like astronomical. So people aren't driving as fast as they once did on the Autobahn, but nobody looks at the Autobahn and says it doesn't have any speed limits. Look at how bad the traffic crashes are. So again, I come back to my point that traffic crashes are caused by the mismanagement of speed and space, not by speeding. As well, the Trans-Canada here in British Columbia has been raised. It was raised about 5 years ago now. Tim would probably know this better than I. That it was raised from 100 kilometers an hour, which is 62 miles an hour, to 120 kilometers an hour, which is about 75 miles an hour. Speed differentials. This is another thing that leads to car crashes. The difference between the speed of your vehicle and, say, that of pedestrians. Different road user groups. What is the speed, the average speed of different road user groups? In cities, most cars are traveling at 30, 35 miles an hour, whereas pedestrians are traveling at 6 miles an hour. A cyclist is traveling at 18 to 25 miles an hour. Your car is traveling at 30, so there's a 6 mile an hour speed differential. You need to manage space between those different kinds of road users, and you need to be able to recognize that to keep yourself safe when you're driving. And apparently, the audacity of some pedestrians and the speed differentials between cars and pedestrians leads to almost 25% of traffic fatalities being pedestrians. And here's the other kicker of all of this is, and I was talking about winter driving tests and taking your test in the wintertime and encouraging you to do that at the beginning of this presentation here. Summertime is when there are the highest number of crashes on our roadways. It's July and August are the highest number of crashes in the Northern Hemisphere. Obviously, it's different in the Southern Hemisphere, but summertime is the highest number of crashes. Here is the thing about speeders and speeding. Policing speedings. We all know that wherever there's a speed trap, traffic coming towards you, if there's a speed trap up the road, and Tim can attest to this as well as being a retired police officer, that people will flash their lights at you to indicate that there's a speed trap. There's also this sign down here. You can see that somebody posted the sign that says speed trap ahead. And now you can see here, I pulled this up on Google the other day because I was tracking my brother because he drove across the country in a 50-year-old car. I'll tell you the story about that. And I was noticing that on Google Maps on my phone, there was this little symbol here. And so I zoomed in on this because I didn't know what it was. And it turns out that they tell you on Google Maps on your phone where the speed traps are. So even Google is in on promoting people to speed. You know, maybe that might be a bit of an overstatement, but they're telling you where the speed traps are. So even Google is in on this culture of driving, which I found very interesting. Social driving, we've talked about in the past. If you watch any of my videos, I talk about the challenges of social driving, the characteristics of social driving, putting makeup on while you're driving, not coming to a complete stop at stop sign intersections, keeping up with the traffic flow, me first, all those things. This is all part and parcel of social driving. Speeding up at yellow lights. If you're late for an appointment, you'll speed so you'll get there and be on time, because it's more embarrassing to be late for the appointment than it is to speed when you're driving. Trucking is paid piecemeal. Now, yes, most trucks at big companies are governed at 60, 65 miles an hour, some of them even 70 miles an hour, but it encourages truck drivers to drive longer hours to speed and get there as quickly as possible. All of this is part and parcel of social driving. How can you keep yourself safe? How can you drive smarter? Always manage space in front of your vehicle. That is the one place in this day and age that you can always manage space. This, by managing space in front of your vehicle and never being one car length, never closer than one car length to the vehicle in front of you, can be proactive and predictable on the roadways. And you can stay away from other things, because it's less likely that you're going to hit something if you're not near anything. So space management. The components to master while you're driving: space management, speed management, observation, and communication. These are the tools of a smarter, safer driver. And you're going to use speed to manage space and always have that space around your vehicle. Observation is going to allow you to manage that space, because you're going to recognize hazards on the roadway, pedestrians, other road user groups, cyclists that are going to do something unexpected and whatnot. And then you're going to communicate effectively, because driving is a social activity. It's like a relationship with another person. You have to communicate effectively with other traffic, with signals. Position of your vehicle on the roadway. If a road user, pedestrian is standing near a crosswalk sign, they're probably going to cross the roadway. So this is another way that we communicate on the roadway. Horns. Use your horn sparingly, because it's seen as a sign of aggression in this day and age. And then if you're not sure what the road user is doing, get eye contact, and then use your hands to gesture. And I gesture a lot, because if somebody cut my hands off, I'd probably be deaf. Good luck in your driver's test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. It is easier, yes, I said that, it is easier to get your driver's license in the winter time. First and foremost, you can get a test date, because right now all of the DMVs, because of the pandemic, are backed up. The last I heard was about 4 weeks ago. I was at the driving test center here in Vernon, and they were booking 4 months out, which is February. So you could probably get a driving test date earlier in the winter time. Second, it's the driving examiner is more relaxed, because he or she isn't doing 47, 50 road tests a day. Not that that's how many they do, but they do a lot of road tests in the summertime. So they're not doing as many road tests in the wintertime. As well, most of the goofy people stay home in the wintertime. They're not out on the roads driving around, because they're those people that are freaked out and scared and believe that every time you go out there's a blizzard and you're going to die if you drive in the wintertime. So there's those people stay home. The other thing is that tires now are of a high quality. Even if you have all-season tires, quality all-season tires in your vehicle, you're going to get good traction. Most vehicles now are all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, or four-wheel drive. It's very unlikely that you're going to have a vehicle that's rear-wheel drive. I mean, all the pickup trucks are four-wheel drive now. You just put them into four-wheel drive and you go out and take your driver's test. So you're going to get good traction. You don't have to be 6 to 8 inches from the curb when you're parallel parking in the wintertime. You just have to be in behind the car behind you, because driving examiners, for whatever reason, they don't want to push you out of the snowbank. And if you do get stuck in the snowbank because you got in too deep thinking that you needed to be 6 to 8, 12 inches from the curb, unfortunately, you're probably not going to pass your driver's test. So don't get stuck. Okay, just get in behind the car in front of you and you're good to go. As well, hill parking, it's always in towards the shoulder because, you know, snowbanks are formidable, but they're not going to hold your car in the event that the transmission lets go or the parking brake lets go. So know that. Lines on the roadway are usually covered by snow, and therefore the only thing that you need to do is stop behind the sidewalk and then creep out where you can see at two-way stop sign intersections. You only have to park in beside the car in the parking lot at the test center because there's no lines. So you don't have to park in between the lines, which is tough, as many of you know who are learning to drive. You just have to park in beside the car beside you. So there's a lot of good reasons to take your test in the winter time. Take your test in the winter time. Book a driver's test. Get your test. RSV, can you travel above the speed limit in California when overpassing on highways and freeways? And yes, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But if you have your driver's license, then yes, if you're overtaking on a 2-lane road, then I strongly encourage you to go above the posted speed limit. I know that there are organizations, ICBC here in British Columbia, for example, who are responsible for licensing. They say, don't go above the posted speed limit. Well, I'm sorry, but you're endangering people when you're not going above the posted speed limit when you're passing somebody on a 2-lane road, because you're increasing the amount of time that you're in the passing lane, that you're in the lane of oncoming traffic. You want to minimize the amount of time that you're in that lane. You want to get in that lane, you want to get the vehicle up to speed, and you want to pass as quickly as possible. Now, on freeways, interstates, you don't have to go above the posted speed limit to pass other people. Elevator, there was a driver going 100 miles an hour on Interstate 90 in Chicagoland in a 70 speed zone. You know, there was a time when 100 miles an hour was really fast. 100 miles an hour, 160 miles an hour. I mean, even my old buggy will do 175 kilometers an hour. Yes, I sped. Yes, it goes 175 kilometers an hour. But you think that, you know, some of these sports cars, crazy amounts of horsepower. The Corvette is now coming out with a stock engine that's 1,000 horsepower. You can get the Chevy Camaro in 750 horsepower. 750 horsepower, that's a 250 mile an hour car. We're talking about, you know, 100 miles an hour. That's not really that fast anymore because of the automotive technology and the advances in engine technology. 170 kilometers an hour, that's pretty easy to attain in most modern vehicles now. They'll do that without a heartbeat. And, you know, most of the time you can go that fast. So it's not really shocking anymore that people are going that fast out on interstates and those types of things. Tim says it is unsafe to pass without speeding. It is unsafe to pass, period. Yes, and I would agree with what Tim says on 2-lane roads. However, there are people on 2-lane roads that just insist on driving below the posted speed limit. I mean, most of us, if you've been driving for any amount of time, 10 days or more, that you get behind these people on 2-lane roads and they're 45, 50 miles an hour, 65 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour. It's like, would you just pick a speed, please? You know, I don't care if they're doing the posted speed limit or they're 5 miles an hour under the posted speed limit, but pick one speed. Learn how to use cruise control, people. Please learn how to use cruise control. It is so easy to use. It is so easy to use. Maintain a constant speed, please and thank you. All right, so those of you who are new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I was a truck driver in the 1990s, hauling freight between Ontario, Canada, and the eastern seaboard of the U.S. I did, you know, mostly east of the Mississippi. Did make it out to the western states and the Midwest a fair bit, but, you know, haven't been to Nevada yet. Haven't been to Salt Lake City, some of those places, but Washington State, Los Angeles, and whatnot. Became a licensed commercial driving instructor in 1997, earned my doctorate in legal history in 2006, and this is where some of this information comes from. Regional drove for Greyhound, one of the regional bus lines in early 2000s while I was finishing up my doctorate at the University of Melbourne in Australia. And in 2015 started the Smart Drive Test online business, which has been wildly more successful than I could have ever imagined. We just passed 250,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Last month, in the last 28 days, we've had more than 1.5 million views on the channel. Just wildly successful. And if you want to know more about me, the channel, the business, you can check out the autobiography over at the Smart Drive Test YouTube channel. Good stuff to check out. Check out the podcast, New Drivers, Defensive Driving, over at the Smart Drive Test website there, and Corey will put up the link for that. And unexpected events on your driver's test, definitely have a look at that video. We talk about unexpected events, yellow lights, if you get caught at a yellow light, what happens? Ambulance, constructions, accidents, all of these are potential things that you could have to deal with on your driver's test, but they only happen every now and again. So these are kind of the little surprises that might happen to you on your driver's test. So definitely have a look at that video. Talking about distractions on the roadway, we're talking about distracted driving. You just get a police car driving down the roadway and you want to see distracted driving. You want to see people being goofy. And Tim could probably tell some great stories about people being goofy on the roadways when police cars are driving down the roadway. I was coming through town the other day and all of a sudden the traffic just comes to a screeching slowdown. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And there, of course, is a police car. And nobody would pass the police cruiser. Even though the police cruiser, I think, was doing 5 or 6 kilometers an hour less than the posted speed limit. So, you know, just weird stuff, which is just awesome. Thank you, Goose, for that. Turbo, in a situation like this, I would pull to the side and let them go since they want to speed. And then when I get behind them, I would turn my high beams on out of pettiness. I hate drivers like that. Drivers that are up and down and up and down. Yeah, it drives me crazy too. You know, Turbo, I've recently been noticing a lot of impatient drivers lately, especially at night. They would tailgate you to pressure you into driving faster than the posted speed limit in a residential area. And, you know, I don't understand this. People tailgating you to get you to go faster, because people are not going to go faster. And actually it's quite the opposite of what most drivers are going to do. Most drivers are going to brake check you just to get you off their tail because they do not like you tailgating you. They're going to retaliate. So social driving, and this is the other thing that I talk about in terms of social driving, is that when you do that, or when another driver does that, tailgates you to tell you to go faster, they're going to retaliate by brake checking you. And when they brake check you, they're being reactionary and retaliatory. So to be a safer, smarter driver, you want to move from reactionary and retaliatory to being proactive and predictable on the roadways, because that's what's going to keep you out of trouble. That's what's going to stop this kind of retaliatory action that Turbo is talking about when he gets behind them and flashes them with the high beams. You know, that's minor in terms of forms of road rage and aggression, but it's still road rage, right? It's not as bad as brake checking people, and I don't understand why anybody in their right mind would be brake checking people, because that's incredibly dangerous, especially when it happens on freeways and at higher speeds, because we talked about kinetic energy. We talked about how much energy is in the vehicle. And, you know, if people escape with their lives, they're very, very lucky. Goose, is it true that if you speed 100% of the time, then you have a 100% chance of getting ticket? I don't know, Goose. I don't know about that. I guess it depends where you live. If you live in Ontario, I can tell you right now that the Ontario Provincial Police presence is much more, it's much higher than the RCMP is here in the province of British Columbia. I go home to Ontario and see my folks, and I'm just like, I can't get over how many OPP vehicles I see in a couple of days. It's just a lot compared to the number of RCMP vehicles I see here in the province of British Columbia, especially policing traffic. Elevator, there was a pickup truck who almost caused a crash on Interstate 90 in Chicagoland and kept cutting people off. And yes, I'm sure, hopefully, the police got to the person and, you know, gave them a ticket or whatnot. John, interstate and road numbers, are they the same? No. Interstates and state roads in the United States of America are different. But there is a video here, Corey put it up for you, about driving on interstates and the numbering system for the United States of America interstate system. And essentially it's odd numbers go north-south, even numbers go east-west, and 3-digit interstate roads either are a ring road around the city, circumferential, which is a spur off the road, which goes down and then comes back up, or it just goes into the city. So I'm trying to remember the number of the interstate in Washington, D.C. I think it's 295, which just is a spur into the city, and then it terminates. So that's kind of quick overview of the interstate. Miguel, hello from New Jersey. Thanks for sharing and your driving videos. You are most welcome, my friend. Big Mac Sam is here. Hello, hello. Goyden, what's the proper procedure for changing lanes on highways for the purposes of a road test? Rear mirror signal, shoulder check, side mirror, and shoulder check again. Yes, so on the highway, you're going to change lanes, mirror signal, shoulder check. You're going to check, make sure you have a gap. And the other thing is that the vehicle behind you has to be kind of in the top outer third of the mirror for them to be behind your vehicle. Look ahead, shoulder check again. Of course, your signal's on the whole time. Minimum 3 flashes on the signal when the way is clear. Then you accelerate slightly and then move over to the next lane and change lanes, okay? And keep your signal on the whole time that you move from one lane to the next, all right? Gustavo, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. That is awesome, my friend. Congratulations on passing your driver's test. Still nervous going on the Highway 401. Again, kudos for passing your driver's test. That is simply awesome. Yes. What I would suggest, maybe, if you want to hire a driving instructor to take you out on the 401 or the Gardner Expressway, any of the other freeways there in Toronto, and just get a bit of experience, and that will definitely help you out, or take somebody that you trust to give you a bit of feedback and mentor you for driving on the freeways and those types of things. But again, it's that merging thing, right? Get your vehicle up to speed. Don't dawdle when you're on the on-ramp and acceleration lane. Get out on the freeway and get it going, so that way you're going to keep yourself safe, okay? Miguel, I'm a new driver. I have 2 months. I'm learning with your videos, and that is awesome, my friend. Awesome, awesome. And Goose, I wanted to go back to this. Yeah, when Goose is saying a 420 was a big block, a big block. My brother, who's a mechanic, and he's a huge Pontiac guy, loves Pontiacs. He's got a 1978 Pontiac Trans Am, all redone, looks really, really great. And him and his mate, who's both John, I called them the two Johns, they flew to Edmonton from Ontario, drove to Red Deer, bought a 1972, so we're talking a 50-year-old car. Yes, it's hard to believe that 1972 was 50 years ago. 1972 Pontiac Grand Prix. This thing is like a boat. It's like 2 cars of today. Like, it's like if you looked at it like a Kia, it would be like 3 of them. It was enormous. It had a 455 big block in it, vintage everything. It even had a mechanical fuel pump on it. And they drove this thing 4,000 kilometers from Red Deer, Alberta, all the way back to Ontario. They got to Sault Ste. Marie and the fuel pump was leaking on it. Of course, fuel prices are record high levels, right? And they get to Sault Ste. Marie and the fuel pump goes out of it. And of course, my brother's a mechanic. He's a very talented mechanic. Not mechanic, automotive technician. He's a very gifted automotive technician. And they swapped out the mechanical fuel pump for an electric fuel pump. So I was kind of tracking this whole thing, and that's how I got the Google Maps with the speed trap thing on there. So they bought this car and drove it all the way back to Ontario and had great adventure, but they were telling me the heat didn't work in it. Of course, it's October, right? So it was pretty chilly in the morning time when they were in the car driving, and the fuel gauge didn't work. So of course you have to keep track of how many miles you drive to know when to put fuel in it, because you don't want to run out of fuel. And just driving this absolute monster car with a 455 big block in it. But there was a time when that was a big deal. But now you can get Tracy's Audi S4 has a V6 supercharger in it, which probably has more horsepower than most 1970 big block engines, which is just crazy in terms of technology. Goose says, yeah, we dropped a 455 into a 68 Camaro. Yes, and my brother builds hot rods, and just some of the stuff that they have there is just incredible. Elevator, there was an accident on Interstate 294 and a traffic was at standstill. Interstate 294 goes around Chicago. Yeah, you get a crash on those interstates and freeways, and traffic just comes to a standstill until they get it cleared away. And actually, it's just a lot of work for emergency crews, especially if people are injured or people have to be taken away to hospitals or someone is killed. Then there's an investigation, and the freeways can remain closed for quite some time. Mallory, when my mom passes a slower driver on the road, I will tell that slower driver to go home and watch Smart Drive Test. Thank you for the promotion, Mallory. That's awesome. Miguel, I would like to get a video from you for people like me for first time how to drive in winter or snow street covers. Miguel, yes, we have a whole playlist on winter driving videos, and that will definitely help you out and get you started. One of those things as well for those of you who are starting to drive first time in the winter and you haven't done this before, go to a parking lot when there's been a bit of snowfall and you got a bit of snow in the parking lot and just work the primary controls. Go a little bit quick, try and brake and steer at the same time, figure out what the vehicle does when it's oversteering and when it's understeering, because there is such a thing called understeering. If you're going too fast and you turn the steering wheel and the car continues to go straight, that's understeering. Oversteering is when you're going fast and you turn the steering wheel and the back end comes around. That's called oversteering. So you got to get used to how the vehicle reacts when it breaks traction on slippery conditions. And in the wintertime, the places that you're going to find where the road is most slippery is going to be at intersections. If the road is snow covered, it's going to be at intersections, because what happens is the cars come up and brake, and then they skid and they slide, and they create heat. You get heat from friction, and it melts the top of the layer of ice and snow on the roadway, and you get a layer of water on it. Ice is most slippery when there's a layer of water on top of it. Think of an ice hockey rink just after the Zamboni's gone out and flooded the ice. When that layer of water is on top of the ice, that's when it's the most slippery. And that is why in the wintertime, when you come up to an intersection, you stop and slow down back from where you actually want to stop, and then you creep up to where you actually want to stop. That way you're going to get stopped. As well, know in the wintertime that the farther you get away from main roads, the more snow and ice you're going to have on the roadways, because crews, maintenance crews, are working on the main roads. They're salting and sanding and those types of things. So if there's been snow overnight, they're out, they're working on the main roads and getting those done. It's going to be a little bit of time before they get into the residential streets and get those plowed and those types of things. There was a lot, man, that was a long time ago. 7 years ago here, we had 36 inches of snow in a 24-hour period. And it was just more snow than any of the maintenance vehicles could handle, because of course they've got rid of all of the snow blowers and the big plows and those types of things, because we didn't get a lot of snow for a lot of years, and then we get this amount of snow, and basically we were driving on residential streets that hadn't been plowed, and they just left it until the spring because the plows and equipment that they had simply couldn't handle that amount of snowfall. So this is one of the things you need to know in the wintertime. They're going to be working on main roads, and they're going to be clear and fairly safe to drive on. Miguel, thank you so much for the super chat. You are awesome, my friend. If you have a question, let us know. Always happy to help. Corey's put up all the videos for you. Thank you for that, Corey. That's awesome. That really helps out all the smart drivers. And Big Mac Sam, thank you so much, my friend, for encouraging people to hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Awesome, awesome. I find there are bad drivers in all states. I used to think New Yorkers were bad drivers when I lived in New Jersey. Now it's reverse, actually all states, and Sam is absolutely right. It doesn't matter whether you're in Illinois, whether you're in Arizona, whether you're in Texas, Florida, Georgia, everybody's got bad drivers. We got bad drivers here in British Columbia. It was like I was coming back across the city today. I went to buy coffee, and it was just crazy. I was just like, would you stop doing that? And they're driving slow, and every traffic light's red, and you're just like, and you're trying to stay calm, right? And I was, and we're trying not to get crazy about the world right now, because we're all trying to hope that the world is not going to hell in a handbasket. I went down and bought a jug of laundry soap and my coffee that I buy, and my coffee had gone up $5. The jug of laundry soap and the coffee was $50. And I was like, oh my God. Try not to panic. Try not to panic. All right. So yes, it's bad everywhere. Wherever you go, it's bad. And you know, inflation's not just here in North America. It's global. Germany, Tracy flies for her job, and she just got back from Germany. She just got back from Brazil, and she said the inflation is global. So hopefully that we can get this goofy thing under control here in a year or so. So yes. Goyden, got any jiu-jitsu stories for us this week? Goyden, yes. Jiu-jitsu is always good. I love jiu-jitsu now. I got over all my anxiety and my fear of it. And anyway, and I work with Ben, who's like 240 pounds, and he gets on, you know, he gets you in mount, and you're just like stuck. And I'm just like, ah. Anyways, working with a white belt, and he was trying to get a triangle on me. I did get out of the triangle, but then he got me in mount, and I was like, oh, okay, good on you. That's what the mark is on my face here, if it's from jiu-jitsu. That wasn't a very good story. I didn't really tell a very good story. I'll think of a better story for you. Goose, a student driver with instructor crashed into a driving school's front window today near the road test center. Now that's crazy. That's a great story, Goose. That's a great. Did anybody get, somebody had to get pictures. It'll be in the paper for sure. And this will just reinforce that new drivers are bad. And new drivers aren't bad. Okay, because especially ones that are on learner's permit, because they're learning how to drive, and they're with a driving instructor, they're with a mentor. So there's basically two people driving the car. Corey, remember 2019 prices? At this point, I should probably try to forget. Yeah, Corey, you should probably try to forget when fuel was less than $1 a liter here in Canada, and it was probably what, $3.50 a gallon in the United States of America. Somebody posted something on Facebook last week and said that, well, actually they posted the picture of the service station in Los Angeles, and it was $8.50 a gallon for gas there. And here's the question I have. Goose, what's the price of fuel in Northern Ontario there? Because I talked to my mom the other day. She lives in Wingham, Ontario, and she said, oh, the fuel just went up to $1.52 a liter. Why is fuel in here in British Columbia where I live, it's $2 a liter. Why is fuel 50 cents a liter cheaper in Ontario than it is in British Columbia? That's the question I have. I mean, I can understand 10 or 15 cents, but 50 cents, that's a lot. That's a lot. Goyden, the triangle must have made the white belt's day considering you're a blue belt. Yeah. Goyden, yeah, I think he was pretty chuffed about the fact that he got that on me for the most part. But you know, I'm no spring chicken. And the white belt's like 24, and he was, oh my God, he was so strong. I was like, oh wow, this guy's strong. I can't get out of this. Teresa, hello. Epic, my friend. Another thing, it gets even scarier at night because there is no enforcement on some highway segments. They can go above the speed limit, 30 miles an hour. When I was driving in Pennsylvania, I tend to go over 5 to 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. Yeah, see, Goose is in Sudbury. It's $1.52. It's $2 a liter here. Oh, I got to write my member of parliament because I am not happy about that. That is like, when I'm going to spend $100 to fill up the buggy? That's crazy. Anyway, enough lamenting about inflation. Let's be happy. Happy, happy, happy. Epic says in other parts of the world where speed cameras are 24/7, going over 1 mile an hour, 1.6, results in overspeeding fines. You're going to see this more frequently in Japan, Australia, Europe, Korea, and US. Depends. Yes. And Australia has speed cameras, and this is why they have a culture where you drive 100 kilometers an hour. And you know, when I drove coaches there, all the coaches were governed at 100 kilometers an hour. And there were sometimes you'd be passing cars and you'd be like driving the Indy 500 because you're just like tearing past them at 100 kilometers an hour. Yeah, speed cameras are something else, and they really create a very different kind of driving environment for sure. You know, and it's very different to be in a country that has pervasive use of speed cameras. But it's interesting, you know, because my dash cam, my Garmin dash cam warns me of red light cameras. And now I figured out that Google, warns you of speed traps. So it'll be interesting to kind of see. And the other thing about speed cameras in terms of a political issue, we had speed cameras here in British Columbia some years ago, and it was run on a political platform when there was an election with the provincial government here, that they got rid of the speed cameras. If they were elected, they would get rid of the speed cameras, and that's what happened. They got rid of the speed cameras. So we don't have speed cameras here anymore in the province of British Columbia. And probably Tim knows more about that. I don't know whether he's still here or not, or whether he had dinner. He usually goes for dinner. So yeah. And Elevator says he doesn't like being tailgated. I don't blame you. I don't like being tailgated either. I don't like people being that close to me. Okay. Big Mac Sam, me either. I'm not a spring chicken. We miss our youthfulness. Yeah, but you know, Sam, I'm happy that I am very grateful to the powers that be that I am still healthy. Last week I started running with my kids, and I'm very happy about that. I'm very happy that I can still do jujitsu, because a lot of people would say that, especially jujitsu, it's a young man's sport. So I'm still happy that I can do it. And if the white belts get me, he was a 3-stripe white belt, so he's been doing it for a little bit. So good on him for being able to do that. I was impressed that I was able to kind of defend against it and got out of it, but out of the frying pan into the fire sort of thing. There we go. So speeding. Again, I come back to highways, and again, it's about speed management, space management, making sure that you have that space in front of your vehicle. You can always control that, and especially on freeways, you don't want to pace other people. And one of the videos that just went viral on the channel here was the freeway with the truck and the car pacing the big truck. Don't ever do that. I mean, if you're in the big truck, the big truck finally did get to the point where he's like, I can't get past. Probably a he, could have been a she, and then tried to get back over, but the car wouldn't let him. So, that's one of the reasons, because it was a controversial video of, was the truck driver in the right or was the car in the wrong? Who was in the right, sort of thing. But it happens, and, these issues of speeding, these issues of space management, we're all trying to do the best we can. And keep in mind, driving is a social activity, and, like our relationships, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And in driving, it's not the fact that you're going to go out and be grumpy and sleep on the couch for a couple of weeks because you've upset your significant other. In driving, it's a matter, are you going to be right or are you going to be dead right? Because driving is emotional. I have come to this conclusion that driving is incredibly emotional. And there are times, like today, when I was driving east to west across Vernon, which is incredibly frustrating, even at the best of times, that, red lights, people doing goofy things, driving below the posted speed limit. It's frustrating, and driving is emotional, and it's about keeping our emotions in check. And if that person is speeding or that person is tailgating, putting in the defensive strategies that will keep you safe so you don't end up in a crash. Because yes, you can be right, but you don't want to be dead right. And sometimes you just got to let it go, right? If the other person's going to speed and, pace you or do those types of things, you just let off the throttle a little bit and let them go and have their crash somewhere else to keep yourself safe when you're driving. Because, as Elevator just said, everybody speeds. Everybody speeds. And if people say to me, oh, I never speed, I would say, well, I am skeptical. And I would be skeptical. I would totally be skeptical, because myself, I do. I drive with the traffic flow all the time. For example, here to Kelowna, the speed limit on the highway is 90 kilometers an hour, and I know that you can drive all the way up and down that road all day long at 110 kilometers an hour, and you will never get pulled over. So the traffic flow in the 90 is 30 kilometers an hour above what the posted speed limit is. So for those of you in the States, it's posted 55 miles an hour, and most people are driving 70 miles an hour up and down that road all day long. That's the traffic flow. David, people speed in construction zones, school zones, and residential areas too nowadays, which are the worst places to be speeding. And yes, and this brings up an excellent point. Thank you for that, David, that comment. There are places to speed and there are places not to speed. And these places that David just listed here, construction zones, school zones, and residential neighborhoods, these are not the places to speed. If you are speeding here, you're just being negligent and you're reckless, okay? Because there are way too many obstructions and other road users, and especially vulnerable road users, in these places. Construction zones. I mean, there's flaggers, there's construction workers, people who are trying to make the roads better for you so that you can go faster. So we can have a little bit of inconvenience in the construction area and slow down to the posted speed limit in the construction zone and not be speeding. Now, I had a video about driving in the rain on the highway some years ago. I did take it down eventually and I redid it because I was on the Trans-Canada Highway east of Hope, just about to the Coquihalla Highway. There's a construction zone there, but it's Sunday and there's nobody in the construction zone. The construction zone is barren. There's not a person there. And I'm speeding. And I put it up in the video, and a lot of people come back and they're like, you're speeding in a construction zone. You're speeding in a construction zone. But I was speeding in a construction zone on a Sunday when there wasn't anybody there. So the question becomes, and again, we come back to driving isn't emotional. So are you the kind of person that believes that traffic laws are immutable, that you can't break them at all? Or are you the kind of person that drives and goes, okay, I've made a decision based on the conditions of the roadway, and I'm driving faster than what the posted speed limit is? And so that's what happened. But because of the comments and because I'm a traffic safety professional, I took the video down. But I will say to you, I drive with the traffic flow. I don't drive the posted speed limit when I drive. Goyden, what's the longest road trip you've ever been on? Goyden, the longest road trip. Okay, so we're not talking about my truck driving days, because I drove professionally, so I was on the road like all the time. But last year, my kids and I drove from here, Vernon, British Columbia, to Ontario, and then we drove back. And that was 4,000 kilometers, which is 2,800 miles. So that was the longest in my car ever. We drove, across British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and then Ontario. And Ontario is a big place. And many people don't know this and are surprised when I tell them this. Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It's the same distance from Toronto, Ontario, Canada to Florida, the state of Florida in the United States, as it is from Toronto, Ontario, Canada to Thunder Bay. So yes, it's 2 days drive from Toronto to actually get out of the province and get into the province of Manitoba. Ontario is a big province. Goose, I speed a little bit too when I'm late for a student. LOL. That's funny. Sam, good night, smart drivers. Getting some rest. Good luck, everyone. Thank you so much, Big Mac Sam, for dropping in. Always a pleasure to see you, my friend. All the best there in the Bronx. The Odyssey, 2007 Honda Odyssey is the best vehicle by far ever made. I don't know. I've never driven an Odyssey, but from your experience, it sounds like it's a really good vehicle. Elevator, I don't speed in construction zones. And as a rule, if there are people in the construction zone elevator, I definitely don't speed either. Okay? And I would counsel you and everybody else, as we go back to what David said here about school zones, residential neighborhoods, construction zones, please don't speed in those places. There are places to speed. Okay? There are places to speed. But those aren't them. Okay? And again, it comes back to what I said earlier about the mismanagement of space and speed. This is the reason for traffic crashes. Because if speed was the culprit and the reason that we had traffic crashes, there would be more traffic crashes on highways, interstates, and freeways. There aren't. There are more traffic crashes in cities, in urban areas, because there's more things to hit. There's more people. There's more mixing of traffic. There's different road user groups, right? There's cars, buses, cyclists, pedestrians, trams, trolleys, motorcycles, right? All those different road user groups all vying for road space, which means that they're fighting for road space and sharing road space. And the two ways that we share road space is physically sharing road space. So there's 2 lanes of traffic and 2 rows of cars going down the roadway, or we separate road user groups and traffic by time. Traffic lights. The one set of traffic waits and the other traffic goes, and then the cross traffic goes, and then the other traffic waits. So these are the ways that we do it. But not everybody stops at a traffic light and they run the traffic light and it causes a crash at the intersection. People are impatient. Drivers are emotional. Driving is emotional. This is why we have traffic crashes, because when they're emotional, they don't make good decisions about their driving and they mismanage speed and space, and they don't observe correctly and make allowances for that in their driving. Banana, have my second road test in Kelowna end of October and feeling nervous. Banana, you're going to do awesome. Just remember to breathe, do what you need to do, and keep in mind, luck favors the prepared. Do the work, you'll pass your driver's test first time. David, there have been criticisms that speed traps and speeding tickets are more about raising revenue than safety. Speed traps and speeding tickets, I don't really level that criticism at that, but I do level that criticism at speed cameras. Speed cameras are very much about raising revenue, and there was a book I read, I can't remember the title of it, but I can look it up for you if anybody wants to know, and there was an in-depth discussion about the placement of speed cameras and where they are placed, and that they are placed for maximum revenue generation because they're placed in places where they've done all kinds of studies to show that traffic speeds in that area, and that's where they put the speed cameras. And remember, the municipality, the region where the speed cameras are placed, gets a kickback from the company that manages the speed cameras. So yes, I have no belief that speed cameras are about safety. Speed cameras are about raising revenue. Bottom line, that's it. All right. Honda guy, can you do a tutorial for how to drive it? For my brother, Odyssey. I don't have a Honda Odyssey, but I do have a video parallel parking with the big truck, and that's similar to the van that you're driving that will help you out with that. Have a look at that, and then if there's something else I can help you with, we'll do that as well. Mallory, driving safer while you're driving is your best interest, and can't agree more for sure. Odyssey, so my dad has an 07 Odyssey and had exhaust leak problems, transmission hard line leak, and power steering, couldn't get it to run. Really, you would have to floor it sometimes, it would barely move. Odyssey guy, that van sounds like it has a few issues. It sounds like it has a few issues. Corey will put the video up for you on parallel parking a larger vehicle, and that'll get you started with the parallel parking with the Odyssey for sure there, okay? Epic. Parts in the U.S., Virginia, 85 miles an hour and over is seen as reckless driving with radar detectors illegal. Yes, radar detectors. For those of you who don't know, there are radar detectors that you can have implemented in your car. Most states, most provinces, these are illegal. You might hear somebody say, oh, I got the Hound dog in my car. That is a CB trucker lingo for Hound dog is a radar detector, and they are illegal. And if you are in a state where they are illegal and you get pulled over because they can detect that you have a radar detector in your vehicle, if you get pulled over with a radar detector, the police will rip your car apart. And they have every legal right to do that, to find the radar detector. So if you getting pulled over by police and you have a radar detector in your vehicle, I don't know whether you'd be able to pitch it out the window and get rid of it before they got to your car. But yeah, no, you just know where you are and whether they're illegal or not. First ton. Do you remember the first time you drove a car? Mine was when I spun the block with my dad's car. When was the first time I drove a car? Oh, I was really young. I was probably 12, 13 years old when I first drove a car, because I grew up on a farm, so it was different. I mean, we had cars and your parents let you drive all the time and whatnot. So, you know, I had a lot of driving experience before I actually ever got my license, and I've been driving tractors and farm equipment for a very long time because I started working on the farm when I was 12. So yeah, a long time ago. Tim, is there a reason that the speed cameras are in certain areas, stats of increased collisions, etc.? Tim, the reason, at least this book that I read that talked about it, I could see the cover of the book, but I can't remember the title of the book, talked about revenue generation, that they do studies to figure out where the speeding is along certain stretches of highway and figure out where they can generate the most amount of revenue. Most municipalities and regions that have speed cameras in place will put out the rhetoric that it is for purposes of safety and purposes of controlling speed along a stretch of roadway and whatnot. But I am hard pressed to believe that. As I said in the presentation, the country of Ohio, or the state of Ohio, the country of Australia has widespread use of speed cameras everywhere. And it has created a culture of driving where drivers in Australia do not drive faster than 100 kilometers an hour. However, in the country of Australia, they do not have reduced numbers of traffic crashes. They still have the same number of traffic crashes, even though they control speed with speed cameras there. So whether that's a case study or not, and whether that's evidence to support that speed cameras don't work, I don't know. But this author, and like I said, I'll look it up and I'll put it down in the description for those watching on the replay, that made a case, made an argument, presented evidence that these are nothing more than for the purposes of generating revenue and filling government coffers. That's the reason for speed cameras. Tim, perhaps because the RCMP is having great difficulty filling positions, and this is the reason why we don't see this police presence here. And yes, I have a friend at Jiu-Jitsu who's a police officer here in the city of Vernon, and yes, same thing. He's working a lot of overtime because of the difficulty of the RCMP having with filling positions right now for police officers. Goose, 14-year-old's here down a dirt road in my aunt's car to get her a pack of smokes. That's awesome. Odyssey, van would be scrap, but I don't know. David, people speed on open freeways because speed limits are underposted and set artificially low sometimes. And yes, that is true, my friend. Corey, yeah, I noticed in slightly more than a few places in BC has wide disparity between informal traffic flow. The bridge, for example, was basically 20 kilometers an hour plus difference. Yes, there's a lot of difference in traffic flow here for sure. Mallory, great live stream tonight. I really enjoyed learning about all of the information that you have to share. Thank you, my friend. Always a pleasure. Corey, the informal flow was perfectly safe, to be clear. Fair space. It makes me wonder why the authorities never adjusted it to be more accurate. I don't know. And again, Corey, we come back to the case study and the question of the Autobahn, where they don't have speed limits, and they can't point to that and say, listen, there's no speed limits here, there's more crashes, because it's not a causality. Speed is not the reason for crashes, and I come back to this again and again. Tim says, sorry, comments apply about 20 minutes ago. You froze on me. Okay. Thank you for that, though, Tim, about police officers. Yeah, I asked you that question about police officers and why there isn't such a huge police presence here in the province of British Columbia. All good. Honda Aussie guy, do you think if the van is still available or not scrapped, it can be repaired? Honda, any vehicle can be repaired. It just depends on whether you want to spend the money to have it repaired or whether it's more feasible to purchase another vehicle. That's always the question when you have a secondhand vehicle, for sure, to decide whether you're going to repair it or whether you're going to unload it, sell it, and then put money into another vehicle, because that's always the question that you have to kind of weigh out. And there was a period of time there a few years ago when the buggy, the distributor, that's the word I was looking for, the distributor went out of it, and I was trying to figure out whether I was going to keep it or whether I was going to get rid of it. It was time to get another vehicle. So I had to kind of weigh those decisions about whether I was going to do those two things. So we're at the top of the hour here. Thank you so much for your time and your questions and your participation in the live stream. Always, always a pleasure hanging out with you and helping you out to pass the driver's test, become a safer, smarter driver. For those of you in the last couple of weeks who passed your driver's test, congratulations. If you got a driver's test coming up in the next week or so, good luck on that. Remember to check out the Smarter Driver course package over at the Smart Drive Test website. Guaranteed to pass your driver's test first time as well. Winter's coming. For the low price of about $38, we throw in both the winter and defensive driving smart courses. So check those out. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.